Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's episode is about Orbital. Um, Orbital is a UK techno act, live act from UK. Started out in the late 80s, like 88, 89, and had their big hit in 89. And probably for the next 5 to 7 years, they were probably one of the biggest techno acts in rave music and festival music and in concerts, etc. So I wanted to go over some of my favorite music from them, and kind of go over some of the music that I have by them. I think the first time I heard them was probably some compilation in like 91 or 92, really early on. I think if you look at like most of the strong compilations about techno and trance in those days would have an Orbital track on there. Like they were. I mean, again, they were huge. Their live energy acts were legendary. I could certainly start there with their Glastonbury appearances. They actually played there, I think, 3 times in those days, 94, 96, 2000, maybe 2004, so maybe 4 times. Maybe they played 4 times in Glastonbury. 5 times it says right here. So, I mean, this is a two disc set, and a DVD of all their appearances. And if you know their appearances in Glastonbury, I don't think there's anybody who can, especially live and recorded live and especially performance wise, that did what Orbital did on that kind of stage. As far as, even though I don't consider their music necessarily deep or anything like that, but they did do techno, ambient, a lot of different styles, and their music wasn't rave. I mean, it was still techno, and in some regards, I could classify their music, especially from like 89 to, I don't know, maybe like 97 or 98 when I stopped listening to them. Like they were kind of the ideal techno for your kind of getting into deeper music. Orbital was, especially for Americans, especially people my age, anybody over 40, and is into electronic music now in America, they're probably huge Orbital fans. I think Orbital, along with, maybe Moby and The Orb and maybe Underworld and things like that, that was probably the 4 biggest techno acts. You could throw Prodigy in there, but that was a little bit later as far as their American breakthrough. But on the underground in America in like 90 to 94, 95, nobody was bigger than really Orbital or Moby, Underworld got a little more popular a little bit later in America, similar to Prodigy, but yeah. So like they're kind of, they are considered to me the gateway into deeper music. I remember at the time I was, you didn't really think about like, oh, this is deeper music or anything like that. You just kind of gravitate towards what was a little bit less obvious or what you liked better. It was just kind of, if it was in you and you wanted to go deeper down the rabbit hole, then you would keep looking for other stuff. And that's just kind of what Orbital opened the door for, especially for myself. They had some, obviously, some really well-known tracks, which I can go over here. I actually don't have too much vinyl of them because I think when I wasn't necessarily collecting vinyl in for techno in 91 to 96. So a lot of the early Orbital stuff I had was on cassettes or CDs, and some of them are still the same ones, but I've lost some over the years and had to replace them. But As far as like spinning Orbital, I have CD players, so if I need, I like to play something by them, I'll play them. But as far as like playing like them into a set, I really only have Chime and Satan, and those are two of their biggest hits. I have the 12-inch over there, probably on FFRR, which is I guess a sub-label of London Records, right? So, but yeah, I mean this. If you haven't seen Orbital live, that would be a really great introduction into them. Or you could buy one of their CDs, get one of their CDs or early CDs, especially the first 4 CDs, which I'll touch on in a second. But you can't go wrong with this. Not necessarily this compilation, but you can see their stuff on YouTube. You see the, and they did. I mean, they were on there 5 times, so they did quite a bit of some of their best stuff. And the nice thing about this DVD is I don't think anything's really repeated. Even though they played multiple times, I'm sure they played multiple shows. They just kind of took the highlights, probably of each additional tracks. I mean, this one says 15 tracks over the course of 5 shows. I'm sure they played more than 3 tracks per show, but they just didn't put the duplicates, which is, it's not, you got everything. Otherwise, this would be like a 5-disc CD pack, just DVD. But so this gives you a nice, really strong overall. Plus, it adds the CD of each too, which is regular versions. Just the audio versions of the live, actually. But yeah, man, Orbital was huge during like '89 to '94. One of the first times I do really remember hearing something a little bit deeper from them was actually this compilation in '93. A couple of years later, I do have it on CD as well, but I ended up getting a sealed copy a few years ago. This one's still sealed, but my original copy was a cassette as well. And one of the really cool tracks on here is the Naked and the Dub, which is like a 10-12 minute track, and just shows you that Orbital, could do something a little deeper. And it's one of my favorite tracks by them, certainly in the top 5. But it's kind of a lesser known track, even to people that like Orbital. The Naked and the Dub. Check that out. That's a really cool sample. There's some really cool samples in that. Not necessarily this one. It should be on YouTube. The Naked and the Dub, which is Orbital. So actually, I don't have their first album. I used to have it on cassette, and it's considered the Green Album, right? For those that know. It's a Green Album, and Chime and Satan wasn't on that record, if I remember correctly. But it was on, or maybe it was. I'm having a hard time because it's been so long. Again, I lost the cassette. It has, Fahrenheit, and I remember Speed Freak was on there with a Moby mix. There's a few like guys, it's like almost the songs are almost on the tip of my head. The Isolate, but it's been so long since I've heard that CD. But there's a few like they're like devices that you would find in Ice Cobalt or I just can't. I think Midnight's the track on there. But there's some really good tracks on there. It's the least that I like of their first 5 albums. Put it that way, though. It's raw. It's some of the techno's a little too fast. Missing a little bit of melody. The last track I think is my favorite. It's either Midnight or it's the one that kind of has the most melody. But overall, it's really solid. I mean, for that time, it was really good. It's just kind of looking back on it now. There's some memories with it, but it's not necessarily to the level of the Brown album when '93 when this came out. This was amazing. Of course, probably a lot of people have heard of Halocron On and On, which is certainly one of my favorite Orbital tracks of all time. You could put it. Is it a trance song? And that's something I've kind of gone back and forth on, because I really think Orbital is a techno outfit, but Helicron is probably their most melodic. But that's kind of the state of techno in those days. Anything that wasn't straight techno, may have a hint of melody. Kind of people were thinking, oh, this is trance. And that's how it kind of was in those days. Of course, Helicron On and On was known for being in Mortal Kombat, right? The movie, which is really an iconic scene, especially for people that love video games and Mortal Kombat and the history of that. That was a special moment. I remember being a big Orbital fan in '95, and me and my friend Jorge and a couple other people were at the movie theaters, and we went and saw Mortal Kombat. And I could tell right from like first 5 seconds that melody was coming in. I looked back at George, who was sitting in the back, and I was like, they're playing Helicron On and On. He was like, oh shit, it's fucking awesome. So then that just crescendoed over the next like 2.5, 3 minutes. Just an amazing movie electronic music moment that you rarely have. I think I've had that only a few times, probably like Traffic had Brian Eno's song. Maybe the Saint. Well, the Saint had Orbital song on it. The Saint, had one of the theme songs was the Val Kilmer movie. Saint was actually an Orbital song. So, I mean, it made sense that they were in movies. Maybe what's another moment? Of course, Tangerine Dream. Love in a Backseat, whatever it is. Love on a Moving Train. Love on a Backseat. I made myself laugh. Love on a Moving Train, or was it Love on a Train? Just Love on a Moving Train? Love on a Train. But that classic Tangerine Dream is one of the all-time special moments. And actually, I did see that movie back when it came out. Well, I was probably 7 or 8, and that scene was like R-rated for me at the time. Like, that was like, whoa. But I remember that melody. That melody was amazing, and that's what made that scene. It wasn't like that Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay were making out on a train, but the way it was filmed with that title, I mean, that shows you the power of a good electronic song in like a movie. It made that somewhat corny, cheesy movie really cinematic, and just a simple, kissing scene turned into, just cinematic beauty, thanks to that song. And slow motion video was cool. But this is a great album. Of course, Lush 3.1 is the other big one on in here. And then you had some huge techno tracks. I mean, it's huge. Impact, Remind, was it Planet of Shapes? Yeah. Impact and Remind are just huge. Planet of Shapes. I mean, just Brown album is amazing, and it's really, a lot of people consider their next couple albums kind of their pinnacle of their artistic expression, but I think it's so hard not to put this first. It's so hard. But I can see why they put the other ones first, for sure. But I mean, this is just an amazing album, and I really like the artwork too. It was, kind of funny and clever, but clean. You know what I mean? You love the dolphin with the hammerhead with the. I'm sorry, the what do you call that? A hammerhead shark, right? Why? Or that's not a hammerhead shark. That's a. I can't think of the other thing. It's a spear. It's not a spear shark or something like that, but it's a. Yeah, but why? It's like, why? What does it need to? It's like a saw. It almost looks like a saw. But really cool artwork on here. Has them contacting people through satellite, going back to Earth. Very cool. Inside, kind of unique for the time. So I mean, just really cool album. I mean, this really put Orbital on the map. You know, this is still considered one of the best. You know, I think it might be in top. If I remember correctly, it might be in Rolling Stone's like top 1,000 albums you need to hear before you die, or definitely a couple of these are. Here's Civilization, which was the. You know, I remember buying the brown cassette, but I really remember getting this one, which was the one that really impacted me. And that was really the difference between really me liking techno and really liking whatever kind of style. This was it was just deeper, more melody, some different beats, like, you know, if you know Keen Trink Weisner, Keen Trink Wazzer, I guess, you know, which is just a filthy electro beat, which is sick. This kind of runs out of steam a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of Are We Here? That was a single as well. They played it on Glastonbury. It's kind of one of their most epic songs, but it, you know, it could be like 16 to 20 minutes. I think there's a few different versions, but for me, it kind of feels it makes the album too long, and then you got Attached at the end, which is a good song. It's one of their best for sure. It's kind of what I think of Attached is kind of like Attached is like Belfast. And I forgot to mention that on here. Belfast is on the Brown album, of course, right? Belfast? Should be on the Brown album. I don't know why I'm blanking on that. Pretty sure it's on the Brown album. I gotta check this. Belfast is not on the Brown album. And it's not on the Green album. Was it a single? Just a single only? Anyway, Belfast is, you know, I remember when I used to play Orbital for my dad. My dad loved Belfast and Helicron On and Love Street Point 1. Those are some of his favorite early songs, and I played him dance music in those days when I was like 16, 17, 18. But yeah, this just Are We Here just makes the album drag on a little bit too much for me. I mean, Philosophy by Numbers is a good song. Science Friction is a good song. I told you about Attached. That was really good. Cash and Carry, I can't remember offhand, but I know it really flows really good in there. Sad But True is good. The first two tracks are really my favorites on here, though. Forever and I Wish I Had Duck Feet. Just kind of they're more, you know, I hate to say this would be IDM for those two tracks. Excuse me, but these are a lot deeper, I think, than just the way the melodies evolve and the rhythm. This one kind of is these two are kind of unique compared to their other stuff, and I like that progression. And to me, this is probably, it's, you know, if it didn't have Are We Here, I would say this one's better. If it was a track there, or if it doesn't. But that one it's hard for me to get too attached when I hear Are We Here because it just goes on too long. But Orbital, I feel like, yeah, Brown's albums is a straight through listen. You know, here's I'm not sure which one was my original copy, but I'm missing a little sleeve. But this is probably the original copy because it still has the sticker on there, and I used to always keep the sticker on there. So moving on to one of their most creative albums, which is Insides. I think this came out in 95 or 96. This was so unique for the time. I mean, the things they make melodies out of and rhythms out of here is just, there's a lot of UK folks that are, you know, in their late 30s, early 40s, that this is one of the most important electronic albums of probably their lifetime, especially of their early childhood and of the 90s for sure. Like Inside is probably, most people would consider their masterpiece, and to be their masterpiece, 4 albums in, you know, and quite a few singles, other singles that far in, that's telling you something of how strong their run was. You know, this is at like 6-7 years. I mean, and this is a double album too, and there might be 1 or 2 tracks on here that I don't like, but I can't remember them offhand. I would probably say a safer bet that there might be one in here that I don't necessarily hugely care for, but for a 2 album set, you can get through this pretty well, and this is like, I don't know, it's hard for me to kind of pinpoint the sound of this. There's a lot of like gongs and bings and just all kinds of unique sound. It almost sounds like if you're a clown in some kind of like fun house, and it's just, you know, bings and bongs and all kinds of stuff going on that turn into a melody. You know, just super cool. So many good songs on here. So many good songs. Then I go on to this is actually this is Middle of Nowhere. So this came out like 96 or 97, I think. Started to lose a little steam. You know, there's a couple tracks on here. You know, I can't. The Middle of Nowhere, the title song is good. You know, but I it's kind of losing steam here. You know, I'm starting to get in probably in 96, 97. I'm starting to get a lot deeper stuff, and this was kind of like too popular, too poppy sounding, too straightforward, not deep enough. They're just kind of running out of steam there, but there's some good songs on here. It's just kind of running out of steam. I think I did buy all together the 2-disc set, but there was only like 1 or 2 tracks on here, and I don't know whatever happened to it. Probably the last release that I bought from them is Funny Break. The single for Funny Break, which has the Laylo and Bushwhacker remix and Weekend Raver mix. You know, probably the last probably thing I bought from Orbital. Again, I didn't have a lot of their stuff on vinyl. You know, then they took quite a few years break and probably came back in 2003 with the Blue Album, or I think it was 2006. There was another album. Maybe that was the Blue Album, but I think 2003 was Blue Album, and then 2006, you know, and then I think there was another one in like 2012. But I didn't listen to them. I didn't check them out. Maybe I will someday, but I think my ship on Orbital sailed a long time ago. But for a period of their 6-7 years, man, they were one of my favorites. But you could tell that if you listen to Orbital, you could tell that, in my opinion, their creativity kind of was coming to end. They'll always be great live, and I would love to see them live. That would be a bucket list thing, to go see Orbital live and hear their classics. That would be special for sure, because I never saw them live. But as far as like getting a new album, and my taste have kind of like moved on from Orbital. And one thing about Orbital is they never necessarily were a band that electronic band that layered things. You know, they're very great at sequencing things, great at making certain sounds catchy, great at making a rhythm. You know, some of the beats are really cool. You know, so there's a lot of things to like, but for me, it's without the layering, like that's a big piece for me, and I just feel like I'll probably be disappointed and just not. So, I mean, a lot of times I would just blindly buy stuff by certain bands, and I'm not going to blind buy Orbital to be disappointed. So, unless I come across it for like super cheap or something, or like I can't find something in the record store and I see a CD of theirs for like $2, probably won't buy it. But you know, maybe you guys can give me a recommendation of a song to check that isn't in 1989 to 1997, 1998 from Orbital, and I'll give it a listen and check it out. Just put it below, and I'll tell you what I think of it. And knowing me, I have to be really honest, but I'm fair. I think when I give opinions of stuff that I don't like, and I give a reason for it. I don't just say it's shit, unless it's really shit. You know, it's just stuff that's really shit. But yeah, that's kind of my history with Orbital and their music. Again, like, if you don't know Orbital, take a listen to Insides, take a listen to Snivelization, take a listen to the Brown album. You may like the Green album, but I think that's a little bit more earlier techno album. Middle of Nowhere is a little straightforward, a little more popular altogether. But definitely check out those three albums: Civilization, Brown Album, and Insides. And it's two words: Insides. But great stuff from them. They were super important for me back in those days. I mean, Orb was more, I liked Orb, the more down tempo Orb, and that down tempo mostly, anyways. But Moby had his rave stuff, and then had his melancholy stuff. This is way before Play. And had that, and then Underworld. I wasn't really necessarily into Underworld, and so Orbital was straightforward, the best in techno for quite a few years there. I was a bigger fan of Orbital probably than Aphex Twin during the first couple of years until I care because you do, and then that was like the pinnacle, probably, of that year. And that kind of, again, I was probably an example of an album where I just kind of moved on from. Even Insides was really great, and I was like, I'm playing. I was like, it's really good, but that's not necessarily the direction that I want my taste to go, or what I'm really kind of getting into. I'm like getting into Autechre and just a lot more ambient stuff, a lot more Rising High records, and Apollo records, especially in like '93 and '95. And then I was learning Detroit techno and stuff then too. And so, to me, Detroit techno is the best of Detroit techno is better than the best of Orbital. But there's definitely a lot of great memories with Orbital, even more so than Detroit techno. Excuse me. So it's one of those bands where you have fond memories of, but I don't necessarily go back to a lot because I know these albums so well, and especially the Brown album, the Civilization, and to extent Insides. Inside's a double album, so it's a little bit harder to memorize. But then I might put that on my bucket, on my to-do list to check out this week. Just go over it again, and enjoy it, because I know I will. I mean, it's a great album. It's just I don't necessarily know it as well as the Brown album or Civilization. It's just because it's a double album. But yeah, that's kind of my history on Orbital. So what's your favorite 5 tracks of Orbital, and what's your favorite album by Orbital? If I was to pick a top 5 off the top of my head, this is going to be 100% accurate because I'm sure I'm missing a tracker here. But Halcyon On and On, Lost 3.1, Belfast, Dur Deber, I think it is, on Insides. It's the one with the really moody beginning, got a really cool intro. Jabur, and let's go with I Wish I Had Duck Feet off Civilization. But yeah, those are my top 5. So I'd like to hear yours. Just put them down the bottom and your favorite Orbital album. All right. Have a good day, guys. All right.